All right, diving in today, and we're going to be looking at something really, really fundamental to how we communicate in writing. That is the Carolingian Minuscule script. And we're using the minuscule.pdf piece from the Muncie Codex blog series.
Great source.
Yeah, it is. And our goal today is to really understand, like, why this seemingly small change in handwriting, had such a huge and lasting impact even on us today.
Well, I think it's always fascinating to kind of, go back and look at things that we just take for granted and then realize, like, wow, this was actually quite a revolutionary development.
Totally.
Before we had the Carolingian Minuscule, the written word looked very different.
Right, yeah.
It was dominated by scripts like majuscule and uncial. Essentially, think of all capital letters, right?
Yeah.
In the case of uncial, a little more rounded letter forms. And the blog series, details this. And the Muncie Codex itself is a beautiful example of this new minuscule script in action.
Yeah, it is. And it's amazing to look at these original sources, these primary sources, and see how different writing used to look.
Yeah.
So let's just get clear on the terms here.
Right.
Minuscule, from the Latin minusculus, means smaller, and it's referring to lowercase letters.
Okay.
And majuscule is uppercase.
Gotcha.
The blog also points out the German printing term for minuscules, and this is interesting, gemeine.
Okay.
So let's dive in a little bit deeper into what these minuscule letters actually looked like. What was different about their form?
Yeah, so I think what's really key here is this shift from the uniform height, right, that you see in those earlier scripts. The minuscule letters, well, generally smaller, introduce a real vertical variation. As the blog kind of illustrates, some letters occupy that central zone. Think of, A and E. Then you have what are called ascenders, right, which rise above. Think of D, F, and K. And then, of course, you have your descenders that drop below, like G, P, and Y. And this is, you can kind of visualize this, I think, with that four-line system that a lot of us learned on in school, right, when we were learning to write.
Totally. I still visualize that to this day, actually, when I'm writing.
Yeah.
But so this newfound, vertical dimension, it wasn't just for looks. It actually made reading a lot easier, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about how much easier it is to quickly scan a line when you've got, varying letter shapes, as opposed to just this solid block of, uniform capital letters. Your eye is actually using those ascenders and descenders as these visual cues to differentiate the words. It's almost like a subtle, visual rhythm.
Yeah. It's almost like the ascenders and descenders give your eye a place to rest. Right. It breaks up that block of text.
Yeah.
And the blog really emphasizes that this combination of uppercase and lowercase allowed for a much more natural and a faster reading experience, which makes sense, right? Imagine trying to read a whole document in all caps. It's tiring. It's less efficient.
It's very, very tiring. And, what's interesting too is, this wasn't the first time that smaller scripts had appeared.
Yeah.
But it was the Carolingian Minuscule, as our source from the Muncie Codex kind of highlights, that really took hold during Charlemagne's cultural revival.
Right.
So I think it's interesting to kind of ask why this particular minuscule, what was so significant about this one.
Totally.
And I think what's fascinating is that, there was a lot of praise for this script, just in terms of its clarity, its elegance.
Yeah.
But I think even beyond the aesthetics, its true power really lay in its role in standardizing written communication, right, across the Carolingian Empire.
Right.
And this was crucial, right, for administration, for law, for the spread of knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, a standardized script across a large empire, that's a powerful tool for unity, right? It would have made communications so much more consistent, the preservation of knowledge, everything.
Absolutely. And the legacy is undeniable. As the blog series points out, when printing develops during the Renaissance, typefaces are going to incorporate both uppercase and lowercase letters.
Right.
And they're drawing directly on this Carolingian innovation.
Wow.
So, I mean, every time you read a book, every time you read an email, you are seeing, the direct descendant of this medieval script.
Wow. That's amazing. It really underscores that this wasn't just some minor technical change, right? It was a fundamental shift that facilitated cultural and intellectual growth, and as the Muncie Codex exemplifies, helped preserve countless ancient texts for future generations.
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of bring it all together, I mean, the Carolingian Minuscule, with its innovation in letter form, and its standardization, really had a truly profound and lasting impact on how we write and read today.
Yeah. And that leads to a final thought for you, dear listener. Considering how this seemingly small innovation in script had such far-reaching consequences, what other seemingly minor innovations happening today might be shaping our world in equally significant and maybe unexpected ways? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.